The message they want to convey to you is state power will always win. We'll paint you as a child molester, and we'll paint you as a methamphetamine manufacturer. We'll say any lie we want over our propaganda machine, the mainstream media, and we'll burn you and your children in your fucking home. So you just be apathetic, America. You stay docile, and don't you ever forget, you're free to do what we tell you.
How's it going, everyone? This is Jordan with Below the Tension, and you're listening to Blurb number 3, Mistakenly Deleted. Blurbs I do throughout the week, interspersed in between the Saturday evening full show that I do every Saturday evening, which is video plus audio, as news breaks and I feel needs to be reported. I did an episode yesterday, a blurb as well. Check it out. I have my RSS feed and my YouTube links on my Twitter. Follow me at Slav Libertarian. That's where you can find all of my links. And you can subscribe to my RSS feed. I am now on iTunes as well. So, go to my RSS feed, subscribe to my channel on YouTube, so you can get every single episode as it comes out. And follow me on Twitter at Slav Libertarian. I let you guys know if I'm going to be doing an episode on that day or not. Now, I have a lot of news here today, mostly having to do with military, foreign policy, defense. I have a follow-up on the NDAA story that I talked about yesterday. It was breaking news yesterday as I was recording that episode about the NDAA and the fact that Obama plans to veto that bill. He's not very happy with it, and now we know why. So I'll get to that. I'll get to some CIA, NSA, NDAA news, all coming up in this half hour. So let's get to it. Senate passes bill allowing 9/11 victims to sue Saudi Arabia. This is breaking news. It just broke within the hour, just as I was getting off of work. The Senate on Tuesday approved legislation to allow victims of the 9/11 terror attacks to sue Saudi Arabia, defying vocal opposition from the White House. The upper chamber approved Justice Against Sponsors of Terrorism Act by unanimous consent. Now that's very important because if Obama does veto this bill, they will need a 2/3 majority from each House, Senate, and House of Representatives to override his veto. President Obama has threatened to veto the bill. Schumer said he wouldn't uphold the veto and expects the most senior senators wouldn't either. I think we easily could get 2/3 override if the president should veto, Schumer said. White House Press Secretary John Earnest reiterated Obama's opposition to the bill on Tuesday. Given the concerns we have expressed, it's difficult to imagine the president signing this legislation. The bill will allow victims of the terror attacks on U.S. soil or surviving members to bring lawsuits against nation states for their activities supporting terrorism. Now, as I discussed yesterday, the 28 pages is still up in the air whether it's going to be released or not. So the Senate has already passed this. We have senators and congressmen coming forward and saying those 28 pages should be released. So you have a pathway to get some kind of justice. Seems to be too good to be true, but that's how it's looking like it's going. Maybe not the entire Congress is completely corrupt. The legislation will now head to the House, where lawmakers have to introduce their own version of the bill. The legislation has drawn criticism from the Saudi government. Top Saudi officials reportedly threatened to sell off billions of dollars in U.S. assets if Congress passed this bill. Well, they're going to pass it, so what are you going to do? The senators pressed back against criticism that the legislation targets Saudi Arabia, noting that the legislation only allows lawsuits. Yeah, you go to court, you have to prove it. Quoting Chuck Schumer, "Look, if the Saudis did not participate in the terrorism, then they have nothing to fear about going to court. If they did, they should be held accountable." Absolutely. I can't believe that I would be agreeing with anything that Chucky Schumer has to say, but right there was pretty good. Now on to CIA news. The CIA mistakenly deleted its only copy of the Senate torture report. The CIA's internal watchdog claims it accidentally deleted the only copy of the controversial torture report it has. The Senate Intelligence Committee's 6,700-page report has not been made public, and there are other copies at other agencies. The CIA's Inspector General mistakenly deleted both electronic and hard copies of the report. Feinstein immediately wrote the CIA director calling for the IG to be given another copy immediately. So, who cares? They didn't delete the only copy. They deleted the only copy that they had. What's the big deal? Well, even Feinstein, that witch, that gun-grabbing witch, I hate her. But the CIA has gone after her and her staff during this whole thing. Feinstein said, "Your prompt response will allay my concern that this is more than just an accident," Feinstein wrote to Brennan. So what's the big deal? Well, as they say here on Fox News, the error comes just days after a federal appeals court Friday rejected efforts to release the full version of the report, upholding a lower court decision that said that the report is a congressional records exempt from disclosure laws. So, it seems that disclosure on this report is getting thinner and thinner. And the CIA Inspector General, who is supposed to be accountable for investigating internal issues, just so happened to delete his both digital and hard copy of this report. Very, very interesting. Now, on to NSA news. Leaked NSA documents reveal secretive agencies' inner workings. This was just data dumped today from The Intercept. In-house newsletters of the clandestine NSA has been released by the online news site as part of a mountain of documents leaked by former NSA contractor Edward Snowden. The Intercept, whose founding editors were the first to publish documents leaked by Snowden, released on Monday a first batch of years' worth of newsletters which offer a behind-the-scenes glimpse into NSA's work. The newsletters reveal efforts to eavesdrop on Russian crime bosses, the search for Iraq for possible weapons of mass destruction, and help with interrogations at U.S. military prison Guantanamo Bay. An article from May 2003 describes the NSA spent many months obtaining phone numbers of a Russian organized crime figure. Another newsletter in December of 2003, a liaison officer recounts a temporary duty assignment to Guantanamo Bay, where the task was to provide intelligence to support the Defense Department, CIA, and FBI interrogators of detainees picked up off the battlefield. The job entailed relaying information back to the NSA, but sometimes the NSA would share sensitive NSA-collected technical data to help the interrogators. So why is this so important? Who cares? Well, according to The Intercept, neither the Senate Intelligence Committee report on CIA detention and retention program, which confirmed the existence of 2 CIA facilities within Guantanamo, nor the 2008 Senate Armed Services Committee report on detainee abuse by the military addresses any role the NSA played, at least not in the heavily censored versions that had been made public. So, the NSA might also be wrapped up in detainee abuse as well. And speaking of abuse of detainees, details of Iran's capture of U.S. sailors will shock the nation, a congressman says. The nation will be shocked to hear the secrets detailed behind the capture of American sailors in Iranian waters earlier this year, a congressman said on Monday. I think the details actually coming out and most of the Americans are going to be taken back by the entire incident, Republican Randy Forbes said. I have seen the fully declassified briefing. He's seen the full classified briefing. We did almost nothing in response. In fact, to have the Secretary of State, John Kerry, actually thank them for the release of the sailors after the way they were captured, I think, was a slap in the face to the sailors. And he goes on to say that it could be years before that information is released, what actually went down with these sailors, but it does not sound good. So, we will keep an eye on that as that unfolds. And as I said at the beginning of the episode, we do have an update from yesterday. It was just breaking as I was doing the episode about Obama not being too pleased with the new NDAA 2017, and now we know why. There's a fight brewing over the 2017 Defense Department budget, and right in the middle of a scrum is how to use $58 billion the White House has set aside to pay for military operations in Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan. The bill yanks $18 billion from the $58 billion and uses it to buy more ships, dozens of fighter jets, and adding about 50,000 troops to the ranks. The Office of Management and Budget released a memo threatening presidential veto of the bill, calling the move a gimmick. The memo added, shortchanging wartime operations by $18 billion and cutting off funding in the middle of the year introduces a dangerous level of uncertainty for our men and women in uniform carrying out missions in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and elsewhere. The elsewhere is what I'm concerned with. And as soon as I read that line, and if any of you have been listening to this podcast this past week and a half, if you have not, please feel free to go back in my feed and listen to what I've been saying. The elsewhere is Africa. I said look to Africa in my second podcast, and then a couple days later, I just have story after story after story after story after story after story coming out, just blaring this. And to summarize, look for U.S. military operations in Africa. Anytime it's in the news, note it, write it down. And to quote Friday, take a picture. I don't give a fuck. Put it in your mind. Now, uniformed men and women in uniform carrying out missions in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and elsewhere. What's the elsewhere? And as the author rightly notes, there are a lot of other elsewheres. Yemen, Somalia, Libya, Cameroon, the Central African Republic. Every single one of those, except for Yemen, all Africa, just to name a few. And they go on to note that the entire defense bill is $610 billion. And they're squabbling over $18 billion. Well, and you got $600 billion. Then what's 18? Continuing with defense news, the U.S. is ready to arm fractured Libyan government in the ISIS fight. Wow, that's a great idea. The United States and other world powers said Monday they are ready to supply Libya's internationally recognized governments with weapons to counter Islamic State. Libya is under a UN embargo imposed to keep lethal arms away from terrorists and rival militias vying for power. But the communique signed by the U.S. and the 4 other permanent U.S. Security Council members and the more than 15 other nations participating in the talks say they're ready to respond to Libyan government's requests for training and equipment of government forces. Yes. Good idea. The UN deal also created a de facto cabinet to administer the country's underway Prime Minister designated Sarhaya and the 18 ministers that will answer to him. Western nations hope Sarhaya's government can unite the country in order to combat increasingly powerful ISIS affiliate there. They hope he won't be a dictator. They hope. How about, oh my gosh, let's just throw weapons and money at him. That works. That's never went wrong before. Huh? As Libya sank into chaos over the past years, ISIS militants have gained a foothold there, taking over the central city of Sirte and carrying out deadly attacks across the country. Yes, let's just funnel more weapons into Libya. Isn't that what got that old ambassador killed? Stevens? Isn't that kind of what sunk his ship? Okay, that's all for defense news. I have two last stories here, two little tidbits. Donald Trump news. You can't have a news show without talking about Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump to meet with Henry Kissinger, the war criminal, the master of destruction. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump is scheduled to meet Wednesday with former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. And I just add that little tidbit in there on top of everything else that I talked about. And if you want to know the full breakdown on Mr. Trump, I did an entire episode on him last Saturday called The Trump Deception. It's on YouTube and in my RSS feed or on the iTunes app or SoundCloud or anywhere else you may find me. Please listen. And our last bit of information here, and this is quite a piece here, and this is from April of this year, 23rd. It's a little old, but I saw this article back in April. This is before I started the podcast, and I just thought that people should see this and hear this. I had no way of saying it, but now I do. So you're going to hear it right now. Bill Gates' worst decisions as CEO. Now, I am going to college. I'm starting in the fall, going into business. I'm going into economics, and then I'm going to switch over to business when I'm not such a dummy and my GPA isn't so shitty. So whenever one of the arguably most successful CEOs in the history of the world says what his biggest mistakes are, as a business person, you tend to want to listen. Bill Gates served as the Microsoft CEO for nearly 25 years until he stepped down in 2000. But even great CEOs make mistakes, and according to Brad Silverberg, his weak lobbying efforts was one of them. Top of my list is that Bill did not engage himself or the company in the political process early enough. When Microsoft's competitors were effectively lobbying the government, Bill's attitude was the government should go away and leave Microsoft alone. Yeah, it should. He's absolutely right. The government should go away and shouldn't have this much power in the private sector. But as old Bill found out, you're dead wrong. You ain't gonna do business in this country without sucking up to us, without lining that little pocket. I do declare. Silverberg writes, Gates didn't engage the government and politicians early on because he believed the company was competing fairly, and created enough value for its customers. But that approach was disastrous, he writes, as it essentially made the US government and the EU declare war on Microsoft. Holy shit. What a statement. That if you don't line these fuckers' pockets, if you don't suck up to them and kiss the royal boot, they will declare war on you. That is an incredible statement, and something that I guess I'll have to remember if I'm ever going to be successful in this country, land of the free, home of the brave, right? Not without lining our pockets, boy. So, yeah, wow. I read this article, like I said, back in April, and I read it again before doing this podcast, but that just reading it out loud, wow. That approach was disastrous, and it essentially made the U.S. government declare war on Microsoft. Incredible. Well, that's all I have for today, guys. Thank you for listening. You can follow me on Twitter at SlavLibertarian, and there you can find my RSS feed to subscribe to this channel. You can find me on iTunes, Below the Tension. Google me. Find me on YouTube, The Slavic Libertarian, The Slavic Libertarian. On YouTube, I upload even audio files. I upload them to YouTube as well. So please subscribe to my channel. Follow me on Twitter at SlavLibertarian. And you guys have a nice day.